Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. The picture that I've been putting up on these videos is the most famous picture to date of Maitreya. It's how he looked in June of 1988 when he appeared out of the blue to 6,000 people in Nairobi, Kenya. He was wearing all white with this blue, kind of headband and so forth. But this is how this group thought, and the group was quite large, it was about 6,000 people or more, thought that Jesus would look when he returns back to the world. That's how they viewed it. And of course, that's how Maitreya appeared to them. Now, you probably don't know this, but when Maitreya appears to people how he wants to look, Benjamin Creme always called it a familiar. It wasn't necessarily how Maitreya looked in England when he was living in London, and it definitely doesn't look how he looks on TV, obviously. But he refers to it as a familiar because it's familiar for the person. It's easier for them to recognize Maitreya when he looks how he looks to them. That's why he does it. But he does have a look to him, and we'll eventually see how he really looks when he's known for who he is on TV and so forth. But this time that this happened in June of 1988 is the most famous time that he appeared to a church group. It wasn't the last time he did it. It was the first, I think, but it wasn't the last time. And then he started appearing to churches and synagogues and temples all over the world, to different religious groups, whether it was Buddhist or Muslim, Catholic, Protestant, all different types of Protestant religions, to fundamentalists, to more moderate churches and so forth. And it happened nearly every week, I think, from 1988 to just before the Gulf War started. Then he kind of stopped. And according to Benjamin Creme, he stopped temporarily. Now, whether he started it back up again, I don't know. But he would talk to them in their language and speak to them for a time, and then he would disappear to all these churches. And we were lucky enough when Maitreya was doing this that Benjamin Creme reported on it every month in his Sharon International magazine. And he would say that it was it happened in this town, or this city, and it was to Protestants, or it was to Catholics, or it was to, Muslims or whatever. And then his master would also report on the reaction of the crowd, the numbers of people in the crowd and the reactions of the crowd. Sometimes it was 100, or it could be, thousands of people. And a lot of times it was mixed. Sometimes it was totally fearful, but there was always, and sometimes it was the crowd knew for sure it was Jesus or the imam mahdi or the Buddha or whatever. And so it was just kind of all over the board. And when he started doing this, I think with the exception of just a few times, sometimes he would circle back and go to the town again or the city again, so he wouldn't recharge another well, but he would charge a well in the area. And it would, like a water well. And these wells will eventually be discovered. Now, there's 3 of them that have already been discovered. I'm going to talk about them in a second. But these wells have healing properties because the water is actually charged from a very, very high energy source. That when Maitreya appeared to these church groups, he would charge a well a day or two before or a day or two after, and then he would appear to this group, and then he would disappear. And now, before I start talking about the healing wells, to get back to these church gatherings that he appeared to for years, Benjamin Creme always instructed the local Sharon International groups to not try to reach out to these, like if something had happened, if he reported on a Maitreya appearing to a religious group in their town or near their area or something like this, to try to reach out to a bunch of different churches trying to find out which church it was. He said it was their job to go to the media. And you might ask why we haven't heard about it. And I'm sure that there have been some that came forward to the media and weren't taken seriously for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they seem too far-fetched to our cynical media, I guess. The other thing is, referring back to a video about Copper Ridge Baptist Church, that small Baptist church in Knoxville, Tennessee, that had these miraculous crosses of light that appeared in them. And I actually did a video on it, so if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can go back and look through playlists and find that. But the Reverend Joe Bullard, when he was alive and these crosses were in the window, he saw it as the church's mission to open up the doors to everyone, to allow everyone, whether they were Baptist, went to the church, Methodist, or were atheist or whatever, whatever their spiritual beliefs were, he thought it should have been open to them and free to them to come in and look around and experience these crosses for themselves. That's what he thought. And I agree with him 100%. That's what I would have done if I was in his shoes. Now, the church board disagreed with that wholeheartedly, violently disagreed with it. and because they attacked him a few times, according to what Joe Bullard said, and then eventually destroyed the windows, it was just a sad ending to that whole thing. But they thought it should have just been a miracle just for the church. And I'm sure there were that for Copper Ridge Baptist Church. And they didn't want anybody else to know about it. And so it kind of goes along the lines, I think there's probably the majority of these religious groups probably think the same thing. It wasn't for them to tell anybody about it. It was just for them, I'm sure. That's probably a lot to do with why we haven't heard about it. Now, we might hear about them more and more in the future. Now, I bring these up because, again, when Maitreya would appear to these groups around the world, he would charge a well in the area, and it has healing properties. Now, Maitreya was the world teacher for the age of Pisces, and when he and I know I'm digressing for a second, but when he was working through Jesus in Palestine, and the New Testament was written, there was a lot of symbols in that that shouldn't be taken literally. They're more symbols. And one of them is the symbol of the fish. The disciples were fishermen. When he fed the multitudes, what did he feed them with? Fish and that kind of thing. And it was a reference to the fact that Jesus, who Maitreya was working through at the time telepathically by overshadowing him, was the world teacher for Pisces. They were coming out of the age of Aries and moving into the age of Pisces, which the age-old symbol of Pisces is the fish. Now, there's a small couple 3 lines in the New Testament that hint and overshadow, or kind of refer to the fact that Maitreya is also the world teacher for the age of Aquarius. And most Christians don't even pick up on it. But Jesus told his disciples to follow the woman or the man. I think it just depends on what interpretation of the Bible you read. But with the jug of water, or the bucket of water, however they put it, and follow him upstairs or her upstairs and prepare the feast. And it was to prepare the Last Supper before Jesus did his final part of his mission where he was crucified. But it was in reference to the fact that not Jesus, but Maitreya, it will eventually be the world teacher for the age of Aquarius. And the age-old symbol of Aquarius is the water carrier. So it stands to reason that if there was going to be a miraculous sign around the age of Aquarius, that some of it would have to do with water, And so these wells started to get discovered. Now, there's only 3 that have been discovered and reported by all the major news media. I saw and you can actually go on YouTube and look up a lot of videos that go in greater detail about these. But the first one was discovered was in Tlacote, Mexico, which is just north of Mexico City, 100 miles, 70, 80 kilometers, something like that. I don't know exactly how far away it is. It's not too far, just outside. It's almost like maybe an hour outside the suburbs of Mexico City. But it was on a ranch, and it was discovered by the ranchers, field hands, who started. And actually, at first, it was discovered by the dog that Lucas that got into a fight with another dog, had all these wounds on his body, was really scratched up pretty bad, and just happened to drink some of this water. And like I said, this was around 1988 too when this happened. And the dog's wounds healed a lot faster than they would have on their own. And the ranchers that drank directly from this well noticed that they started to feel younger. Their aches and pains started to kind of go away. And the rancher took notice and started to give it to the people freely. And people started coming back saying they'd been healed from cancers to this, that, and the other, to AIDS and so forth. And I don't know if it's still going on or not. I've heard conflicting reports, but for years, there were just lines every day of hundreds or maybe thousands of people lining up for free healing water. And, you know, it's kind of funny. I mentioned in a previous video that these masters have a wonderful sense of humor. And I don't know if they did it, if the reason why the first healing well was discovered in Mexico was supposed to be a humorous one, but I find it funny. If you live in the United States and you travel to Mexico, what is the first thing that people will tell you about traveling to Mexico? Don't drink the water, right? Montezuma's revenge is what they call it, where if you drink the water, it's so polluted or whatever that you'll be in the toilet your whole vacation. And so it's just kind of interesting and ironic and funny, or I think it's very, very funny, that the masters and Maitreya had the first well to be discovered in Mexico. And then one was discovered in, I think, Germany next, or India second, and then Germany. But there's one in Nordno, Germany, and one in India. I don't know exactly the order in which they were discovered. But according to Benjamin Creme's master, those are the only three that are going to be discovered until after the Day of Declaration. And I talk about what the Day of Declaration is and what it means for Maitreya and the world and so forth. So if you want to know about that, you can go back and watch that video. But I am going to include a link into my description of this video for Ainsworth Pharmacy. And where I get my healing water from, it's in tablet form, and Creme is from Ainsworth Pharmacy. It's a homeopathic pharmacy in England. I'm not their representative. I don't work for them, and I'm certainly not making any money by telling you this. I'm just sharing this with you, okay? So if you after reading this and you kind of believe it or you want to try it, feel free to go on their website and order some if you want. I take the cream, I put it on my joints. I do feel that I used to run a lot. I mean, I used to run marathons and stuff, and my joints, especially my knees and my ankles and my Achilles tendons, always had chronic pains. And when I started putting this cream on my joints, I feel years younger when I do it. Now, I'm bald, and I put that cream on my head as a joke, and it doesn't grow hair back on your head, I can assure you of that. But maybe it will do it for you. I don't know. But other than that, I take the pills, the Tlacote water pills, every day just for my general health and well-being. And with all the pollution and nonsense going on in the atmosphere, I figure if I can strengthen my immunity, which this water will do, then what's the harm in that? And so I just wanted to kind of share this with you, and we will talk more about healing wells later. But and as always, take action. Help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Have a great day.